Let's go ahead and get started then. Welcome to you all for the first meeting of the Community Advisory on Public Safety Commission of the City of Bloomington. Thank you all for being here and for agreeing to serve on this important commission. Why don't we start with introductions? So I'm only here for the first meeting just to get things going, and then Councilmember Volan and I will step back and let you guys, run your meetings and choose your direction yourselves. We don't want to dictate what direction you go. So I'm Isabel Piedmont Smith on Bloomington City Council, District 5, born and raised here in Bloomington, and one of the co-sponsors of the legislation that created this commission. Why don't we just go around the room, so to speak, and each of you can introduce yourselves and say what made you decide to put your name in to serve on this commission. So I'll just
call people out.
Yes, I will indeed. All right, let's start with Renee.
I always love to go first. Not really, but somebody has to, right? Well, I fit into a lot of the categories, and I wanted to be part of hopefully some change going forward. And I can't see anything without glasses, by the way. So hopefully we can all come up with some good ideas and make some positive changes in our community.
Thank you. Alex?
Hey, my name's Alex Mann, and I've lived in Bloomington about 25 years now. Through my previous work at places like the Community Kitchen and Indiana Recovery Alliance and Middle Way House, it became pretty clear to me that we need some alternatives to the current system of Bloomington Police Department answering pretty much any distress call. I think getting community intervention in there before the police are tasked with a lot of those calls is a priority. Mm-hmm. And I personally have some experience with mental illness and chaotic drug use. So I feel like I know the communities that we're talking about here and have been part of them before. And I'm looking forward to working with you all.
Great, thank you. Jonathan?
Hi, I'm John Wunrow, and I go by John. So even though my mom gets to call me Jonathan, but other than that, I prefer John. I've lived in Bloomington for 12 years. My wife, Leslie, has lived here most of her life. I continue to work full-time in Alaska, and I work for a small indigenous tribe in a very rural part of Alaska. And I have a background. My background is as an adolescent and family counselor. I've run some crisis shelters for at-risk and high-risk youth, worked in the substance abuse field for a long time. But my current job with the tribe is to help develop programs and economic development programs and social service programs and cultural programs. And so my motivation is primarily stemmed initially from some involvement in the discussions around the homeless population and helping people find places to sleep at night. That was kind of my initial motivation to want to explore this committee. But I really I've lived here long enough now that I want to invest in the community I live in. And so I'm looking forward to participating.
Great, thank you. Kamala. I'm gonna get it wrong. I'm so sorry.
It's okay. My name is Kamala, but if you call me the same as the vice president, that's cool too. My friends call me Cammy, so if that's easier, that's fine. I am a lifelong, I am from Bloomington, and I have almost lived here all of my life. I spent a brief summer in Japan, and then I also resided in Terre Haute. I have been passionate about helping people in this community all of my life. My mother was a social worker, and I used to be a member of the board of an organization called Housing Solutions, and they helped get some affordable housing. It's over by Bachelor. They helped try to get affordable housing there, and I went on a protest in Washington, D.C. at the age of 14 for House is the Housing Now March. So I've always been interested in housing. At one point, I was a runaway in this community. My father was the first African-American police officer in this town. So I also know a lot about law enforcement in this community. I've seen it from the good side and the bad side, because I've seen the inner workings of the police department, and I know about when the police didn't go and back up the police officers, and they were the ones who were hanging the nurses. And I've seen good things that have happened with the police, but I've also personally experienced negative things from the police. And I also know about the stress that the police officers in our community face. And from my father's experience, I saw that they didn't get a lot of resources to help deal with those type of things. And so I think that that's something that might need to be addressed. My father believed that community policing was something that was really, really needed. And that was going back to when Denver Smith was killed. And I haven't seen any change in that in Bloomington. And that's something that I think needs to be addressed. I want to make this community safe for all members in Bloomington. I want everybody to have a seat at the table, which is something that this community and this committee has said that it wants to address. And I want to make sure that that happens. I even want law enforcement to have a seat at the table and say things that they want to have addressed, because I know that they have issues too. I want everybody in this community to feel safe. And that's why I've joined this committee, because I want all of the members of this community to feel safe. And I'm passionate about that.
Great, thank you. Arvind?
Good evening, everyone. My name is Arvind. I am a freshman at IU Bloomington right now. I'm going to be a sophomore this coming year. My primary motivation for joining this commission was just taking a leadership role in the community. Obviously, I believe a great deal in public safety, and the spotlight that's been shown on that particular facet of our lives has been especially bright over the last year or two. And I obviously really want to be a part of that conversation and make this a very inclusive and great area for everyone. I fit into some of the categories that are listed in the initial charter for this commission. But I'm also a student, and I think that representing the student community, which is an extremely large population in Bloomington, is an important issue, and I hope to do that to the best of my ability.
Great, thank you. Nicole?
Hi, I'm glad you're okay. I'm Nicole and I'm a mom. I moved to Bloomington in 2010 and I had a bunch of little kids, all various ages, from pre-K up until like third grade. And now, that third, fourth grader is a college student. So I'm raising children in Bloomington, and I have a 3-year-old who's jumping onto a crash pad behind me or in front of me. So that's why I'm here. I'm here as a low-income mom, a single mom currently. So I've had I have co-parents, but I'm a single mom. And so that's my background. I live on Pigeon Hill. I live in BHA. I'm on the residence council there. So I was active with the house list. I like that we have a lot of people interested in different things. So far, I'm just gonna leave it broad topics. I'd like to say I'm very interested in where local towny teens fit in, big time. Big time. And then I'd also like to know, I'd also like to, find some way for our community to call someone besides the police when there's these noise ordinances, especially since, we're encouraged, if you go to the new citizens classes, the flyers and stuff that you get encourage you to call the police on your neighbors. And I have a problem with that big time. That whole packet. Like I haven't even been through the course yet. I plan on taking it. But I got to see it because a friend of mine went through it. And I have a lot of issues with how that packet is constructed. It literally encourages people to call cops on their neighbors. And I have an issue with that big time. So stuff like that is where I'm looking at it. I know cops need to be around. They need to do their job. I'm not suggesting that we don't need police officers at this stage in the game at all. I think that everybody needs a place to sleep at night without being woken up. And I think, and told to move or threaten to go to jail. And without being woken up, they need to be left alone. People need to be left alone when they're sleeping.
Okay, we're getting into some issues.
I know.
Nicole,
Yes. I'll get off. I'm always feel free to cut me off. I'm long-winded and I start to go off on tangents, but that's like, those basic issues, but they go across the board. So it's all those.
Yeah. Yeah, they are broad. Thank you so much, Nicole. Heather, are you still with us? You want to introduce yourself? Heather?
Give her just a second. I think she maybe had to reconnect.
Oh, okay.
Yes, she said she's having issues.
Well, we could go to Najla first if Najla is ready, and then we can go back to Heather. Najla, are you there?
Yeah, hi. I was just trying to turn my video back on.
Heather,
There you are.
let her
hi.
do video or audio.
Hi everyone. I'm Najla Routsong. And I am on this commission representing also the previously unhoused community. I was unhoused during my teenage years and for a short time in my 20s. And I also have studied human rights, it's like international human rights. And I've noticed and studied some policies in different countries. So I'm bringing an international perspective. And I also sit on the Sustainability Commission. And so I can help bridge the objectives and goals between that commission and this one where they may overlap. I also believe that housing is a human right, and recently wrote a resolution that passed on the Sustainability Commission that asked the city to set up to have a housing first program in place by the end of this year. A comprehensive housing first program to house every person. So that's kind of a quick summary, I guess, of why I'm here, what my interests are. I'm not from Bloomington. I'm from Northern Indiana, but I lived here on and off during college, and then I settled here later after college. And besides living in a few countries, I think that's most of what. Oh, and I'm a neurodiversity advocate, and actually, police brutality and policing in general is also a neurodiversity issue. People who have mental illness and neurodiversity are killed and incarcerated at much higher rates. And so I also am here representing that perspective. Thank you. Nice to meet you all.
Thank you. Heather, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Heather Lake. I'm sorry. I transferred from my phone to my computer and then it said the host wouldn't let me do stuff. I apologize.
No problem.
So I'm Heather Lake and I've never really done anything in government. But this, when I heard about this commission, I was really excited to do it. I'm here, I feel, as a voice for those with mental illness, because I've had a mental illness most of my life and have had trouble with authorities of various kinds. And I think when I've had problems, sorry, I'm trying to find the word. When I've had, like, I guess, public nervous breakdowns, the police have been called several times and have treated me more like I've committed a crime than was having a health problem, such as taking me to the hospital in handcuffs and scaring me because they come with their guns and it's just a lot. It's just very intense. And so I just think that there could be some ways in which we could get other people. I was just telling my therapist about it today, getting therapists and people who know how to de-escalate and people who can talk to those with mental health problems and be able to calm us down. So, yeah. And I also would like to talk about what I've seen with the homeless and the homeless mentally ill, which 60% of homeless people have a mental health problem. So that's what I'm doing, I guess. I just want to make sure that there's voices for people with any kind of problems, but with mental health problems in particular.
Thank you, Heather.
You're welcome.
And thank you all for being here. So we have 8 members of the commission here this evening. Also serving on the commission, but couldn't be here, are Mateo Perez, Matthew Diaz, and Derek House. Now I'd like my council colleague to briefly introduce himself and then the staff who will be helping from the council office.
Well, I'm Steve Volan. I'm the District 6 representative. I'm also a member this year of the Public Safety Commission, so I sat on interviews with many of you. I too am on the spectrum. I spoke recently to the college internship program, which is a college program downtown that serves students who are high functioning on the autism spectrum. And so I very much appreciate the effort that you're all going through here today. And I'm going to speak a little later in the meeting about just some basic principles to guide you, since you're a new commission, on well, just how to run a meeting, like pitfalls to avoid, and a few basic principles that should help you tremendously. Especially, I also am here because I authored the last commission that was created, the Parking Commission, and there's some experience we've had in getting that up and running that might be instructive to you guys. So those are my only reasons for being here and speaking tonight. But like several of our colleagues who are watching with interest, I'm very interested and hopeful in the work that you all are about to embark in. So anything I can do to help you, I'm always at your disposal.
All right, Becky, or Stephen, you want to introduce yourselves? Becky first, I guess.
Hi, my name is Becky Bustani. I've been in touch with all of you. I'm going to be support staff from the council office. So, if you have any questions, suggestions, need anything, you guys all have my email. I'm really looking forward to this. This is really interesting to me, and I'm happy to be involved and be helping.
Thank you, Becky.
And I'm here as well. I'm having some internet connectivity issues, and it seems to be a little better when my video is off. So I am here. I'm happy that you all are here. I'm the attorney and administrator for the Common.
Yeah, we're losing Stephen, I think. Anyway, thank you, Stephen. Just wanted to briefly go over the purpose and the goals of the commission. I know we talked about this at all of your interviews, and just make sure we have a common understanding of the overall goals of what we're trying to, what I hope that you all can accomplish in your own way. So the legislation to create the commission says you are to gather data on the perceptions and preferences about public safety from community members, especially community members who don't have a seat at the table, and also research evidence-based alternatives to traditional policing. And then after doing that work, you are to make recommendations to us on the city council, to the Board of Public Safety, if that's relevant, and to the mayor's office. So are there any questions about kind of the basic duties? As I know we've talked about it at the interviews. Najla?
Oh, hi. Yeah. Yes. Thanks, Isabel. I have a couple questions. How long will this commission last? And when is the report due? And I actually have 3 questions.
Okay, let me come back to you after.
Okay.
So I don't forget your first questions.
Yeah, sorry.
So the commission there's no end date. We are required to review the commission and make sure it's doing what we intended, for it to do. The city council will review the commission in 2 years. So 2 years from today, from the first meeting date. I don't expect that we're going to end it at that point. So I think you'll have, as much time as we need it. I expect this might be a permanent commission to join the other many commissions that we have, but we will see. And then the report after the first year, a report is due to the Common Council. And I would have to look again. Stephen, do you recall whether it's at the end of 1 year after the legislation was passed or 1 year after the commission starts meeting?
I don't think it's specified. I think the ordinance simply provides for an annual report. So I think this commission could decide, do you want to wait a calendar year, so next May, or do you want to report January 2022 and then January 2023, just to have a kind of end of the year report? So I think that's one of the things you'll need to think through. But an annual report, so at least 1 per year.
Thank you. Najla, did you have another question?
Yeah, yes. As far as gathering the research, are we being provided with any experts, interns, consultants, anything like that, who are professional researchers to give us advice, or are we supposed to do all this research ourselves with our own expertise?
Well, I know there have been some volunteers in the community who are very interested in this commission and are willing to help with research. There's actually a professor at IU who teaches social work, and she said maybe this could be a class project in the fall, maybe that her students could help with. We don't have a budget for consultants.
Isabel, if I could also
Yeah.
chime in that Becky Bustani is the council researcher, and as she has time, she can take. I mean, this is one of the first commissions where the council office is the liaison to the commission. Normally, it's a department that falls under the mayor. So, I mean, Stephen and Becky, as they have ability, can do some research for you. They may not have specialty expertise in the topics you're looking to do, but they can at least give you some general grounding.
Yeah, Kamala?
Well, on that issue, I have a friend that's a professor and does some research. So I was going to ask if, like, when we ask questions to like the African American community, I was going to ask if it would be okay if I ask her for suggestions, or if she could help me, because I thought that maybe if we went into the churches, that might be a better approach with some of the things, or what she would suggest to do to try and get that type of research.
Yeah, I
So
think
I was
that's a
gonna-
great idea.
I was going to ask the committee about that, but I also have another question.
Well, I will just add one thing too, Isabel. You all are deputized by the council to ask questions on behalf of the city. In case you didn't know that, that's what we need you to do. You may not know the answers, but as a commissioner, you can ask on behalf of the commission, can you bring us information? You should coordinate with the leadership of the commission once you elect leaders. But in case you had any doubt, we're asking you to lead. So don't be afraid to ask questions and to go out and solicit information.
Kamala, did you have another question? And then I see John and Renee as well.
Yes, when Becky sent us the letter and said if we had any questions, then to ask her, I had a question, and so I sent it to her. But the chief apparently didn't have an answer for her, or didn't feel like he needed to respond. I asked if it would be possible to find out the use of force policy for our police department. And I feel like it would be important for this commission to find out all of the policies that our police department are acting under. Because in a few years, if something were to happen, then the community is liable to come back and ask us, well, why didn't you look into this policy that the department is acting under? Or what were you thinking when you created this policy? Or why didn't you look into that? And then we would be like, well, and I don't want to be like, well, I tried to ask and nobody would let me see it. But I think that that's something, I'm not saying that we are going to change everything or anything like that, but I think that's something that we should know.
Yeah, I think that there'll be some negotiating with the
And I
Board
don't
of
know,
Public
out of
Safety.
FOIA, are there classes that we can take to learn how to do those things? Because obviously I'm going to have to do that.
To do
Apparently.
what? Sorry?
Submit a Freedom of Information Act request, I guess, to get that material. I don't know.
Well, I think I think we may be jumping the gun a little bit. I mean, first, I think we should just ask the police chief or the Board of Public Safety for the information.
So the Board of Public Safety might be that I might be able to go to them as
Yes.
opposed to. Okay, thank you. I
Yeah.
just think that would be something that would be important for all of us to know, because I don't
agree.
want in the future it to come back and bite us. And
Yeah.
I mean, I don't want somebody to come back and say to me, well, why didn't you look at that? And
Mhm. Yeah, Stephen,
And-
did you have something to add to the answer?
Just to add that I'm sure we're going to have a lot of things that we may be requesting of different departments. I imagine most especially the police department. And just so that we're coordinating on our requests, it might be a good idea to compile a list of what you all would like, so that they're not getting bombarded from 5 or 6 different sources. So in addition, anything you'd like from the police department, we should get a list of information that you all would want to gather up. And then that way we can coordinate any requests, police department.
Would it be possible to maybe have a meeting with them so that they know that we're not like after them and that like we just want to try and make things better?
Yeah, I think that we maybe, I love these questions, Kamala, and I think they're excellent, and I think they need to be pursued. At this point, this introductory meeting, I just want to make sure we all understand.
This isn't the right time to ask my questions that I'm asking. Sorry.
But I think we need to come back to your questions as the commission kind of gets their work underway. John and then Renee.
Yeah, I was just going to support what, two quick things. One of them, what Stephen just mentioned, I was going to suggest as well, that as a commission, we coordinate our questions. So 6 of us aren't asking the same person.
Right. Obviously, I meant all of us as a group, not everybody just all willy-nilly submit letters or requests for information. I meant that we would all, like whoever the chairperson is or whoever, like if we send the liaison person to do it, whoever would be the person that does it. Since I had asked before we had started any of this, because she had asked, did any of us have questions? And I had a question. I just wanted to know, like, what do I need to do to get my question answered? Or that's all.
I totally hear you. And I think, I should say, maybe not we, but I will rely on Stephen and Becky's guidance, at least the first little bit around like, who should we ask and what's the best way to ask? And do we need to submit a letter or can we just knock on, because I'm new to government too. And so I don't know the right way to ask and the right people to ask, but I think we use our.
Well, I had also submitted an email to ask this question that I'm asking, what do I do now? And I hadn't received an answer. And so that's why I was asking now, because I wanted to make sure that at some point the question was in fact answered and it just didn't get swept under the.
Okay. I did have one other quick thing it was about the reporting in the original layout or formation of the commission, that there is at a minimum a report at least once a year. And I understand we don't know exactly when that year started, but I guess my question is, does the commission have the latitude to make suggestions in less than a year? Let's say we land on something that we think is actionable and could be done with not a lot of money and would be something that we believe the council would support. Can we do that in 5 months?
Yeah, absolutely.
Isabel?
Yes.
If I can add to that. So the Parking Commission set up in its bylaws to be able to make resolutions. In other words, you all can put together a resolution like the council would. What you can't do is pass laws, but you can certainly pass a resolution that's the sense of the commission. And you can do that on any topic, as long as you all go through a due process to adopt it. So yes, you don't have to only do a report. The Parking Commission also has an annual report to testify. We're behind on it, in fact. And I'm a little guilty of part of that, but because I'm on the commission. But for the rest of you, for this commission, yes, you can pass resolutions that are the sense of that act as a recommendation from the commission. That's part of the function of the commission.
Thank you.
Yeah, and when we first passed the legislation to form the commission, we were a little overly optimistic and we're hoping to get some feedback from this commission in time to incorporate it into the 2022 budget process. Because we have our, the mayor starts writing the budget in June and then presents it to us in August, and then we vote in September, October. Now, since we're just meeting for the first time, May 18th, the timeline is pretty darn quick if we want to affect something in next year's budget. But if you're able to make a recommendation, and have vetted it with people that are concerned, that are stakeholders, then yeah.
But that's an example
Sure.
of something you'd add to your agenda for the meetings to come, June, July.
Yeah. Renee?
Well, I'm not sure I'll remember exactly what I wanted to say, but Kamala. I also have lots of questions for the police chief and how things work. One very important thing I want to know is how they vet to make sure we don't have white supremacists working in our police department. So I think we as a commission can make a list, like Mr. Lucas said, and then John also parroted. So my thought is maybe we could have a meeting, but we'll learn about the legalities of that, aside from our monthly meeting, to come up and compile some questions and things like that for those people. But I also wanted to say that I have several, just a minute, I saw your hand, Mr. Volan, or Councilperson Volan. I have several people that would like to be guest speakers for us as a commission to help us have jumping off places, including the professor that Councilperson Piedmont Smith suggested or was talking about, and also the person that started the program out in Denver. So that's kind of an offshoot of not just calling the police. So we've got some great things we can bring in for us as a commission to talk about, aside from the council folks being here. So anyway, I think that's all I have for right now. So.
Okay. Are there other questions on the basic purpose and goals? Najla.
Just a quick follow-up question to my first one, which is, can you please elaborate a little more on the specific distinction between this commission and the Public Advisory Board, which is also a city commission, I think?
Are you talking?
Sorry, the Public Safety Commission.
Yeah.
That's a different, so, and could you please elaborate on why it was decided to have two commissions, and specifically what our relationship is with the other one? And could you just elaborate a little more? Because I don't know anything about that commission, and I don't know if others do, but I don't.
Yeah, so the Board of Public Safety is mandated by Indiana state statute. And it has 5 members, and they're all appointed by the mayor. And they have a statutory authority over the fire and police departments. So they can, approve hires, look into personnel issues, things like that. They meet every month. For the CAPS Commission, we really wanted a broader view and not just the police department, because we feel like public safety is something that's more broad, that encompasses economic and social safety and healthcare and all these other things. So that's one reason we wanted to establish a new commission. And also, we as city council members have no appointments to make to the Board of Public Safety. It's all appointed by the mayor, and we wanted some other voices, so some other people involved to look at this important issue.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks. That answers my question. And then I came in late. I'm sorry. Who's our staff? Who is city staff in this meeting? Is it Becky Bustani and Stephen Lucas? Who are the city staff?
They are the staff for this commission. Yes, you were right.
Sorry.
Becky,
okay.
Becky. And
okay.
Stephen.
I wanted to make sure, because I came in late. Thank you. That's all.
Sure. Okay. Thank you. Steve.
I was just going to add briefly, the Parking Commission has a monthly meeting, and they also have a monthly work session 2 weeks before the monthly meeting. That's not a place where issues get hashed out. It's more the opportunity where the leadership of the commission have the chance to set the agenda and to make sure that the material that the commission would need to fully understand an issue is available at the regular monthly meeting. So you're gonna have to make decisions like whether you want to have a work session or how your leadership decides it wants to compile the agenda. It could just be that you name a chair and you all send things that you want to talk about, and the chair decides what order to put it in. You also have to decide how long you want your meeting to be. How are you going to meet for an hour every month, 3 hours? Are you going to meet more than once a month? That's entirely up to you and what you all can manage. But these are the kind of things that you need to decide in the first couple of meetings so that by, say, the third meeting, you can hit the ground running.
Nicole,
Hope that
did you have a
helps.
question?
It's kind of been answered. I mean, I think it's up to us. I think we have to write is what Steve just pretty much told me. But like, I'm like, we have different, you know how I was talking about, okay, there's housing issues. There's different layers of public safety, right? Different types of public safety for areas. And so, okay, babe, let's go to the bathroom. And so what I was trying to understand is like, can we actually like maybe break ourselves up into subcommittees to like handle, like have maybe like 4 or 5 people, or maybe even 3, whoever, I don't know, like, I don't know what the requirements are. I don't know enough about government to understand exactly how we would organize that, but where we could break off and do like some preliminary research on a subject to bring back to the council, you know what I mean, to save time, because to try to sit and research something with 12 people or 11 people is going to be absolute pain. Like you need maybe 3 or 4, like, because we do have community members left and right who are willing to research. I know of in addition to the IU professor that you're talking about, I know there's 2 research scientists, one in education and one in the social sciences on IU's campus that are like, what do you need? So like we have tons of backup when it comes, if we can ask a question and say, I need this, if we can pinpoint what we need, we have just about almost, you know, and, or if we can, like, we probably won't even have to go find it. Somebody else will get it for us. Like, so that's really nice. And I mean, that's been pledged, like, as far as I know, many people, I've had multiple people too solid, but is that how we would do it? Basically, is we would just.
I think that's a good idea. And certainly you can, as a commission, you can say, okay, we're going to create, you know, these 4 subcommittees and have, you know, 3 people on each.
So that would just
and include
really
volunteers. Yep, you can certainly do it that way.
My other question is I know we're supposed to pick a chairperson, but we don't know anything about each other and we're all new to government. And so I really feel, I sent an email out initially. I don't know if it got lost or what, but I'm going to go ahead and say this on the record. I feel like that it might be, you know, I don't know, we might hit the ground running if we all had access to each other's applications. That way we all know what we're bringing to the table that we're trying to build here. Because personally, this isn't this, and I don't even know if it's a table. I think it's more of a circuit, because tables eventually run a room, and I don't want to run a room. So like, and you know, a table also puts an obstacle in between me and the other people sitting across the room. So like, I just rather be in a circle. But like, just saying some new imagery there.
Yeah.
The point of the matter, all I'm saying is that like, I don't know like how we make decisions based on, you know what I mean? Like we don't.
Well, we were going to suggest that perhaps an interim chair could be chosen just to set the agenda for the next 1 or 2 meetings. And then once you get to know each other better and see, you know, what people's strengths are, then you could elect a more permanent chair. I think Steve has some input on that as well.
That's exactly what we did at Parking. It was a new commission. And so we had I mean, because I was the author of it and on the commission, I chaired it, but only for the first 3 months. And then on the 3rd meeting, we elected officers. And so I've recommended that this time because you all need time to get to know each other and for you all to understand what the full, like what we're talking about this meeting and what you'll talk about at the next meeting is just figuring out how you're going to do business. The needs of the commission may differ from other commissions, and you may decide that you want to do this or that. One of the things that's on the agenda tonight is to talk about open door law. If you create committees of members of the 11-member commission and a majority of them meet, that could subject them to open door law. They might need to publicly notice that they're meeting. So that's the downside of naming those committees. That's the kind of thing you need to work through with Stephen and Becky. But, you know, like regardless of how you solicit the help of other people, you have to think about that aspect of it because now you're officially appointed and you're subject to the Public Records Act and the Open Door Law.
So that's a good segue for me to turn it over to Stephen Lucas to talk about the function of the commission. I mean, we talked about, what you all as members will do and a little bit about what staff can do to help. But I'll turn it over to Stephen for the other roles.
Yes, thank you. And I hope that my internet holds up. I apologize. I've been having some issues this evening. So if I cut out, I apologize. But we've covered a lot of what I wanted to mention. I'll just reiterate that the goal of the commission is to increase the safety of all Bloomington community members, especially those who are members of marginalized populations in communities. So that comes straight from the enabling ordinance. There are 11 of you, and each of you have one vote on the commission. Commission members are required to be at least 18 years old. So obviously you all are older than 18, and you're also required to be a resident of the city of Bloomington. So if your eligibility to serve on the commission changes because you move outside of the city limits, you'll need to let us know that. The ordinance that created the commission, which we included in your packet for this meeting, mentions some of the duties and powers of the commission, which we've discussed a little bit, but I'll just list briefly. You all are empowered to gather data about the perceptions and preferences of the community on public safety. You're empowered to research different approaches to public safety and to explore best practices across the country, across the world, and in other communities. So those are all sort of internal activities of the commission. The more outward-facing responsibilities or powers include, and I think someone asked about this, making recommendations to either the Common Council, the Board of Public Safety, or the mayor and the administration on policies and programs that would enhance public safety for all community members. There's no time limit on that, so at any point when the commission is ready to make a recommendation, Councilmember Volin mentioned one avenue for that is to pass a resolution. So that's a big one. The ordinance also says that you all are empowered to promote a broader view of public safety through education and outreach programs. So what that looks like is obviously something that you all need to discuss and how that works, but that's another responsibility. And then finally, we've mentioned that annual report to the council and to the mayor, so I won't go over that again. We also mentioned, I think, the 2-year review period by the Common Council that kind of starts tonight, and Isabel mentioned that, so I won't go over that again. Moving down on the agenda to the council office support, I think we've discussed that, so I won't reiterate that, but I will state that you all are welcome to reach out at any point to Becky, to myself, to the main council email account with questions, suggestions, and we will do our best to assist in a timely manner and to help you all with whatever we can. And that brings us to the role of the officers. And I'll just give a broad level description of what each of the officers might do. And these are not necessarily the only officers that you all might want to select. Our code calls for a chairperson, calls it a chairperson and not a president. And this person would typically preside over commission meetings and help approve or put together agendas for each of the meetings, as Councilmember Volin alluded to. Presiding over a meeting involves much of what you've seen Councilmember Piedmont Smith do tonight, which is to call the meeting to order and announce when the meeting has come to an end, go through the items of business. So typically there will be an agenda and the presiding officer will go through those items. You'll call on members who wish to speak. And I see we have a question from Renee, if you'd like to jump in and ask.
Are we tied to Robert's rules?
Yes, I've seen a note from Councilmember Volin. Our local code says that all board and commission meetings will proceed under Robert's rules.
Okay, thank you.
But if you've got a specific question, let me know about what procedure or process you're interested in. Again, the chairperson would call on members who wish to speak. And did I see another hand?
Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. And then finally, the presiding officer would typically put motions to a vote, which means, stating what the commission would like to vote on and then announcing the results of any vote. And the commission would vote by majority vote on most things. So 6 members would be required to vote to adopt something as an action of the commission. Just briefly, the vice chair would serve as the chairperson if the chairperson was absent or unable to serve, and also aid the chairperson or secretary upon request. The secretary for the commission, as another officer, would keep written records of the meeting, which would include the results of any votes, and when appropriate, any findings of fact or recommendations of the commission. So they're kind of the record keeper of the group. And Kamala, you have a question?
Is there any way that we can make a treasurer so the vice chair doesn't have to deal with any of the money?
There shouldn't be any money to manage. There's no.
Yeah, but they have to keep the account, so they can just keep the accounting record and they don't have to actually touch any of it or any of those kind of things at all.
There shouldn't be any financial records to keep. The commission doesn't have a budget. Fortunately or unfortunately, you all.
I just know that, I just read the other section, so I'm just verifying.
The secretary is really meant to keep a record of the meetings, what's discussed, any motions you all make, any recommendations. So it's more to keep a record of what the commission does, if that makes sense. And those are called for by our local code. And that brings me to the open door law and act. Oh, sorry, before I move on, Renee.
How succinct do the notes need to be? Only the votes and so forth, not like verbatim, such and such said such and such.
There's a minimum amount of information that would need to be included, which includes basically the date a meeting happened, who was present, the topics discussed, any votes taken, the result of any votes. It's pretty basic information that's required at a minimum. And then beyond that, I think it's what the commission wants to see. Some commissions have detailed records where it's more akin to a verbatim transcript. Some it's just a very high level summary. And I think that's a question for you all to sort through. Most of our meetings, especially if we're operating over Zoom, will have the ability to record. And so if there was ever a need to go back and watch a meeting, we should be able to do that. But sometimes it's handy to have a summary in written form.
Are we, I'm sorry, Nicole has her hand up.
Sure, Nicole.
Yeah, I just had a question about Robert's rules really quickly. First of all, there is an abridged version that's much shorter. And I'm wondering if the law allows for that. And then if not, either way, we need a class on that.
I can give you a class on it.
Well, we need somebody. No, I want one of them.
Oh, okay.
And I want it very, yeah, I don't want, because I just want it to be neutral. And not that you're not neutral, but you're a member. So that's all I'm saying. Other than that, but yeah, I think that everybody needs to be on the same page about what Robert's rules are, how we follow them, what a meeting looks like, because I'm going to be honest with you. I'm on a resident council that says we use them, but we don't really know what they are. So we kind of use them. And this is city council, or this is city government. So I'm feeling I don't feel confident at all in my ability to use Robert's rules. It's been since college. So that's where I am.
Councilmember Volin, did you?
Yeah, I mean, this is why I'm here tonight, is to give you guys the ultra crash course in Roberts. I've got a presentation that I'm working on for all boards and commissions that I'm working on with Mary Catherine Carmichael from the city. And I'm happy to give you the full version at your next meeting if you want. But I'm here tonight to give you the 3-minute version, what you really need to know so that you feel better about running a meeting. That's my primary reason for being here tonight. And that's coming up here in a minute in the agenda.
Yeah, John.
Quick question, just sort of logistics. In terms of once we settle on when our next meeting or meetings will be, do we have staff support to actually create the public notices and to set up the Zoom calls and all the kind of the technical side of calling and hosting meetings?
Yes, and I apologize if I glossed over that. One of the things that as staff we will help you do is publish those required notices, schedule any meetings so that they appear on the city website, so that they're scheduled for conference rooms once we're back in person, and so that they're set up on Zoom so that we can meet virtually. And we'll share the links. We'll obviously send out notice, and we're here to help with all of that. So yes.
Thank you.
Any other questions before I move on to access laws, Open Door Law and Public Records Act?
Nicole has her hand up.
Oh, Nicole.
Sorry, I didn't put it down and I can't find it fast enough. So I'm just letting you know.
No problem. Just don't want to miss anybody. Okay, I will dive into a very brief and high-level overview of some of the access laws here in Indiana. This could take up a full day or more, so I'm kind of just giving you the most important points. As Councilmember Volin mentioned, you all are now subject to both the Indiana Open Door Law and the Indiana Access to Public Records Act, which means a couple of things. Under the Open Door Law, now that you all are a governing body of the city, anytime a majority of you gather to take official action on city business, that gathering has to be noticed as a public meeting. And a few quick points here. So that means anytime 6 or more of you get together to take official action, which is defined under state law very broadly, and it basically means anything related to the commission. It can be receiving information, it can be discussing, deliberating, certainly making any sort of official recommendations. That is all considered to be official action by this commission. So if 6 of you get together to hear a guest speaker that was invited just to receive information, and the 6 of you don't say a word, that has to be a public meeting. The purpose of both this and the Access to Public Records Act is so that the public can attend and observe when government is acting. And so if 6 of you are going to get together, it's probably a good idea to check with staff to see if that needs to be a noticed public meeting. Notices for public meetings have to go out at least 48 hours ahead of that meeting. And there's some requirements on where it's posted. So I'd encourage you to contact the council office if 6 of you are planning to get together for anything related to this commission. If it's 6 of you that just happen to bump into each other at a restaurant and you all get together and you don't discuss anything having to do with this commission, purely social gatherings like that don't qualify. So it's really if you're doing anything related to this commission that you need to kind of pay attention and pause. So once something is a public meeting like this meeting today, that means that the public is allowed to attend, is entitled to attend, observe, and record what transpires. So you may have members of the public attending your meetings, and they are allowed to record the meeting. So if you see folks, once we're back in person with cameras, they're allowed to record. The public is allowed to attend if you all, is allowed to participate in your meetings, through public comment or other ways. But that's up to you all. So you all can decide whether you'd like to entertain public comment on a regular basis, if you'd like to entertain that just on formal recommendations that you may be considering, or if you don't want to take public comment at all. So I think the form and the frequency of that is up to you all. Renee.
So is it also up to us or to not have a dialogue with the public as they do not have a dialogue at, like in the council meetings, we could say, we don't want to have a dialogue, but we would be willing to listen to the public.
Yes, that's correct. Councilmember Volin, do you have something to add there?
Yeah, I was going to say, we've had to hash this out at council for years. You don't have an obligation to provide public comment.
Good.
If you provide public comment, you must treat everybody equally.
Mhm.
All right. So like if you provide public comment, they all have to have the same amount of time. They all have to be treated the same way. But not every issue has to have public comment. You don't have to have any public comment at all if you don't feel the need. You can take it all via email. Or voicemail messages, whatever you think is appropriate.
Yep, that's all true. And an important point Councilmember Volin just made is that we'll need to treat any public comment that we do take equally with equal amounts of time. It has to be content neutral, so you can't say we'll now hear from folks who agree with us and too bad for the folks that don't. So not that anybody here would do that, but that's pretty important. So the access, and sorry, one more note on the open door law. Nicole, did you have a question?
I had a question in respect to the whole public comment. So like, I get that we get to choose public comment on whether or not we want to have it. And I get that we get to choose whether or not we want to just hear public comment. But is there an actual way to organize a meeting where we have a dialogue?
Where you have what?
A dialogue where we like actually, like, I'm just curious, like, is that an option? Because I've never seen a city meeting like that. That's why I'm asking.
So the city council has a bit of a higher standard to meet. You know, we're actually passing laws. When we pass an ordinance, it's an actual law that changes the city code. And we try to stick to the highest protocol of formality, okay? But a committee of the council does not have an obligation to be as formal when it's a subset. And boards and commissions, again, your commission is an advisory commission. You're not passing laws. You may be doing public business, but you can absolutely have dialogues if you want. You can organize special meetings where you'll do nothing but take dialogue. That's definitely a function you can form. It's entirely up to you how you want to proceed, but that is absolutely something. You can choose whether your meetings are back and forth or not. When I get to my little presentation, you'll see some of the pitfalls you might have to worry about. Okay.
And just one more note on the open door law. I think this was brought up earlier that any committee of this commission that's appointed will also be subject to these access laws. So if there's a committee of 2 or more members appointed, that committee is subject to the open door law, and a gathering of a majority of the committee would need to be noticed. So if you appoint a 3-member committee to take on some issue, if 2 of those members get together, that's a meeting of that committee, and they would have to publish notice of their meeting. Yes, Renee.
On that same note, I sent an email to everyone last night, and it's my understanding then, because it was more than 6, then it could be requested.
So I'll get to the Access to Public Records Act here in a second.
Okay.
I guess one other word of caution related to that, any sort of instantaneous communication. So like if you all hop on a Zoom meeting right now, this is a public meeting. If you got on some messaging service, Google messaging, Facebook, anything like that, where there's an instantaneous call and response where you can talk to each other. If there's a majority of you, that would be a public meeting. Email does not constitute a public meeting. So if you email all the other members, that's not a public meeting, but that email certainly would be a public record. And that's a nice segue into the Access to Public Records Act. I will not read the entire definition of a public record, but it's essentially any writing. So it can be on paper, can be anything, any written communication, email, text message, letter, notes, any media, basically, that is created or received or maintained by this commission, or any member of it. Those are all public records. And what that means is there is a requirement to keep public records for a certain period of time according to a schedule that's published by the
Uh-oh, we may have lost Stephen.
Yep, froze up, didn't he?
Becky, are you there? Would you be able to fill in until Stephen's back?
I mean, he basically said the gist of it. Like if you text or send email, it's discoverable under the Public Records Act. So, you know, just be aware that the public has the right to know what's being done in its name. So.
Okay. I apologize. I've had my hand up and I haven't been seen. So that's fine. I know there's a lot of us in here. I just have a question. So like, is a group text message, like if more than 6 of us are in a text message, that's a meeting and there has to be a notice of it, or that's public information and it could be requested in a FOIA request, which I understand that. But
yeah, it's not a meeting. But it
okay,
could
yeah, I got
be
confused when he
requested
okay, because he started talking about instantaneous back and forth being considered a meeting, but not email, and mentioned Google, and then I was like, okay, I'm confused. So that's where I was confused. I get like if we get on Google Meetup, or if we use some video, then that could be considered a meeting. But like if we're text messaging each other in a group text, that's fine, right? It's just admissible.
Right. If somebody makes a public record request, they could see all those texts.
I think I'm back.
Hey, he's back.
Now. I apologize. I think Isabel's answer, if I understood the question, is correct. And just a word of caution then, you all, any communication you have with each other about the work of the commission, that is likely to be a public record and you all should save that. So don't delete any emails that you send to each other. Be aware that if you text each other, that is a public record. If you're texting about the commission business,
He's having connectivity issues, isn't he?
Yes.
And we really need to know this stuff.
Stephen, can you turn off your video again? Maybe that'll help.
Maybe if we all turn off our video at the same time, he'll get the hint.
I think you get the idea though, and there will be more time to fully flesh this stuff out. Just know that, you know, it's not something you can shrug off. You have to pay attention to, but asynchronous communication like email is protected under the Public Records Act, but synchronous communication like a meeting protected under the Open Door Law. Okay, so as long as it's not, you know, he's back now.
I apologize. I'm so sorry. I'm not sure where I cut out, but the upshot is that you all should retain any messages about the commission's work, regardless of where you send those. So if it's a text message, don't delete it. If it's an email, don't delete it. I would create a folder for emails of the commission so that you can save those. Certainly any written work, so any work product, you know, the report of the commission, any formal recommendations, those are all public record as well. And in addition to simply saving those, we will likely publish those on the commission's website. The city has set up a web page for the commission, and so any work product that you all want to not just, you know, retain but make public, we can post and publish that. And I see a few questions from Heather and Najla. Heather.
We're not getting in there right now.
Okay, so
Sorry, it's too late.
my question was that if we're doing research on a certain thing, is that also public record as to what we're researching?
It can be, it depends. Your own personal notes about something. So the answer is yes, it's a public record. There are some exceptions to disclosure, and personal notes or journals or diaries or the equivalent do not have to be released. You have the option of keeping those private. So, but yes, any sort of research you compile is likely public record.
And people that we work with for research too?
I'm hoping you say no, because stakeholders regarding this are not going to want their identities to be known, some of them. Sorry for interrupting.
Councilmember Boland.
I was just going to say, I mean, if you're creating a draft of a document, the draft can be a deliberative document. Like if I'm working up a new ordinance that's not ready for the public eye, and I'm just wanting to work back and forth with Mr. Lucas, then that's not, once you've created a document and you've published it, that's, you presented it at a meeting, that's public record. I mean, Mr. Lucas has more nuance about this, and certainly the law is more specific than I'm being, but practically speaking, it's not like everything on your computer suddenly is public record. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask about the researchers and things like that, because if someone's going to help us research something, they may not want it to be public record, like what their names and what they're researching and stuff. So that's just why I wanted to ask about that.
I think they may need to be aware of that before they agree to provide or assist with research. That any written records that they turn over to the commission that you all receive could be public record subject to disclosure. Renee, did you have another question?
Could we not call them stakeholders and be okay with that, as long as we don't have any communications that we would have to turn over?
Again, if someone provides the commission with a written document of any kind, whether electronic or in hard copy, once you all have received it, that is public record, and would likely need to be reviewed for disclosure. And Councilmember Volin mentioned one of the exceptions. There are some exceptions that even if something is a public record, it does not mean it has to be turned over to a member of the public that requests it. There are some exceptions.
So a verbal conversation, we could take notes on a verbal conversation and collect data that way. And that might be one of the best ways we go about collecting our data. Well, in some circumstances, so we don't have to give names of people that are, being oppressed.
Yo, it's very simple. Like when we are broken down into a research team, right? And we go out and we go to contact our sources, whatever our sources are, whether they're a book, a website, or a person, it doesn't really matter. Okay, so you're going to go contact your sources. You're going to go through everything. You're going to go have lots of conversations with people, and you're going to research. At the end of that, you're going to come back and bring something to the commission as a whole, right? So when that document comes back, at that point, it's public comment, or it's public. That's what they're saying. So like the whole, like you can't have, it can't be known. I mean, and then, yeah, I mean, if somebody doesn't want their name on it, then they can be like, yeah, I can tell you where to go look for this stuff here, day. And that's about all I can help with. But right now you've got what you need. And then their name doesn't have to be anywhere, and you go find what you need to do because your name's already plastered everywhere. So like there's ways for people to help without their names being attached publicly. If they want to continue to do the process and become a co-author, then that's also a possibility, I would imagine, just saying. And I just know that from working in research, like.
And again, this is a big topic, and I'm sure there will be specific questions that come up as you all do your work. So if you all have a question that you'd like us to look into in more detail or talk through, we could spend again hours on this topic. So I'd encourage you to send questions or concerns to the council office, and we'll try to respond that way.
Anonymity is going to be important. I can promise you that. We're going to have to figure out how to work around that in order to get people to talk to us. So we need to know how we can operate and follow the law and respect people's anonymity. And that's what we need to be educated on. Absolutely.
Why can't each subject come up with their own alias? You can't verify for sure what that subject's name is if that's the name they choose to go by when you're doing the research.
I think this is something we'll need to talk through. Najla, I know you had a question a while ago.
Yeah, I just have a quick question. Are we going to have a Google Drive, a shared Google Drive? I'm curious because my other commission, we have a shared Google Drive where we can, place research, for example, that we want to share with other people, and just other documents and sometimes even brainstorming documents so that we can get a lot done in between meetings. Thank you.
Sure. We don't have one set up at the moment. That's certainly something we can look into. I don't think that's too difficult. So we'll look at that. And yes. My goal today was not to give you a master's course on these topics. It was to scare you into reaching out with questions when something comes up, so that that these laws apply to you all, and know enough to at least ask the question of staff when there's an alarm bell ringing. So again, please reach out with any more questions you've got. We could talk about this for a long time. So I'm going to move on just briefly to the bylaws, and this may be where I kind of transition to Councilmember Volin. There were bylaws sent out, I believe just yesterday, that staff had drafted, mostly drawing from our local code, provisions that apply to all boards and commissions throughout the city, as well as the ordinance that created this commission. So most of the provisions that you see in those draft bylaws are things that we can't change because they're already in code. But any additions, any tweaks you'd like to make, I think we still have time to do that. And I'm not sure if it would be productive to go through in detail tonight, given that those were just sent out yesterday. But like Councilmember Volin suggested, I think in the next one or two meetings, in addition to putting temporary officers in place, I think you all might want to start thinking about these bylaws, and whether you'd like to see any additional provisions. And perhaps by the next meeting or two, we can have those in shape for you all to vote on them. I would encourage you to, again, read through them, respond with questions or suggestions. And I think Najla's suggestion of putting that in a Google Doc so that you all can kind of work collaboratively on that might be a good idea. So we'll look into that and contact you all with more information if that's set up. So Councilmember Volin, I don't know if that's a good segue into your topic on running a meeting, but a lot of the bylaws have to do with the basics of this commission, the requirements, kind of the meetings and how they'll run. So, and Najla is reminding us, yes, that we'd have to make sure not to have a quorum on the Google Drive to break open door law. So Councilmember Volin, if you want to take things over and give your talk.
Sure. Well, thanks. I mean, already I can see how many questions there are for the new commission that the new commissioners have, and this is a common problem with every new commissioner to any board or commission. A lot of existing boards and commissions, they do things in dramatically different styles. But the questions you all had about Robert's rules, I mean, Roberts is famously arcane and a thick tome. And, but, you know, there's a principle or a set of basic principles underlying them that is, I like to think all you really need to know to get started. And I'm going to show you basically one slide tonight that's part of a longer presentation that I'm making. Let me share my screen now. That I'm working up with the mayor's office because they have the same need. So briefly, again, I'm just going to show you the one slide from this longer presentation where I have like 5 slides with 5 items on each one that, can you all see the screen? Yes,
Yes.
okay. So like this is the most basic possible approach to Robert's rules, okay? General Robert was an Army Corps of Engineers, you know, colonel in the 19th, or general, whatever, in the 19th century, who was trying to run a Baptist church meeting in Massachusetts that went so spectacularly south that he decided to engineer a better set of rules. But these are some of the underlying principles, you know, basing them. The first issue is you only talk about one issue at a time. You don't go to the next issue until you dispose of this one. So that's why you have an agenda. You stick to the item on the agenda. Already you can see tonight that when, you know, people are not focused on the agenda, the meeting can kind of get out of hand and go longer than everybody expected. But the basic idea there is don't go to the next topic until you solve this one. You've got to decide whether you're going to pass it, reject it, postpone it, but you got to deal with it first. Don't skip around or say, but what about this? Okay. Second rule is only one person gets to talk at a time. This is why you have a chair. This is why the chair has the gavel. This is why you see, at least in council meetings, that all the requests to speak go through the chair. Not because, I mean, like the worst meetings that I've ever seen have either been poorly chaired or there was no chair at all because people thought we don't need a chair. But without a chair, people interrupt. Okay, several of us, including me, have interrupted tonight, and it's made the meeting go longer. So all requests should go through the chair. Okay, one speaker speaks at a time. I mean, in more informal circles, maybe you have a talking stick and you don't speak unless you get the talking stick handed to you. As a commission, you can be as formal or informal as you like, but the more formal you can be, the better. And if you're not following Roberts, it's not like the end of the world is going to happen. But if anybody ever questions what the commission does, then they can say, well, you weren't following Roberts and you were supposed to. So it's good to at least adopt some set of rules if you're not going to explicitly follow Roberts. The third rule is that everyone should have an equal chance to address the issue. Now, Roberts usually defines debate as 2 chances to speak, okay? Everybody should have, by right, every member of the commission has two chances to address the issue. Now, you don't have to use them, but you don't get 3 or 10 or 20, okay? But you also don't get just 1. If somebody speaks, you can rebut them, okay? Especially if they spoke after you in the first round and they addressed something you said and they challenged it, you should have a chance to say something back. But the point is, whatever you choose for the rules for debate, everybody's got to have the same right to address it. Fourth rule is limited time to speak. Nobody has all day. None of us have forever. We couldn't even get all 11 members here for the first meeting. So you've got to have some way to control time. At council, Roberts by right says no one gets more than 5 minutes and 2 opportunities of 5 minutes each. You can reduce that. You can make it 3 or 2 or 1, as long as you all agree to it beforehand. But there's got to be time limits or you'll be there all day, okay? And the last rule, and I've always said is the most important one, is you have to separate the issue from the person talking about it. It's never about any individual. It's about what we collectively as a group are trying to decide about this topic that we put on our agenda. Now, the hard part about this is that, it's really hard to not take issues personally, all right? But when you're acting in the name of the public, in the name of this greater group, you have an obligation. You have to strive to not take things personally, to not question the motives of other members who would speak to the issue, to not disparage people publicly. It's not about the person, it's about the issue. It's got to always be like that. Again, everyone, Me too. We all struggle to prevent it from being, to prevent from feeling personally attacked by something. But so that's why it's usually better to address people by their last name than their first. You can all agree to speak, be on a first name basis. It's okay, as long as you are consistent about that through the meeting. Generally speaking, that's why you see at council, we address each other as council member so-and-so. We don't say what Steve just said was right, okay? Because it's not about me, it's not about you, it's about us. It always has been. Now, there's a lot more to this, but these 5 rules are like the cardinal rules of Roberts. If you can at least observe these, you're getting the basics down, okay? There's other stuff to talk about, like I've got other slides that I'm working up. Again, I'm happy to sort of work through some of the nuances with you. If you want to invite me back to a future meeting, I'm happy to do that. But let me go back. So these 5, they're the ones that you that will save you. All right. And so when you pick your officers, make sure that whoever decides to be chair is ready to perform this function. And in fact, as chair, if you sort of have an obligation to serve the rest of the commission. So if you want to advocate for a point as chair, you should really pass the gavel to the vice chair. It's another important role of the vice chair is that, you're not so, like the Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi, doesn't usually bring forward legislation. Other people do it. If she really wanted to, she would have to sort of step down temporarily so that she could, advocate for her issue. So but just keep in mind as you're deciding whether or not you want to be in a leadership role in the commission, that this is why you're there and what you need to do. Again, for now, what I think you should do is elect one person to be the temporary chair for the rest of this meeting and for the next meeting. And then at the beginning of the 3rd meeting, once you guys have had a chance to figure out what are your rules going to be, whether they're written in the bylaws or not. And by the way, you have a couple of examples of other commissions' bylaws in your packet, some short, one long, with ideas that you might want to pick and choose to be in your bylaws. But regardless, however you choose to do business, you don't have to put everything in writing. The chair you can leave some decisions to the chair. You should maybe take a couple of meetings to figure out all the things you asked about tonight, hammer them out at the next meeting, and then start an agenda, all the different things you want to tackle at the beginning of the 3rd meeting after you elect officers. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. Any questions? No? Is that good? All right. So thanks for giving me the chance to present this idea. Again, there's more where that came from, but like if you observe these rules, they will save you more often than you expect. Thanks.
Thank you, Councilmember Wolin. And yeah, John, did you have a question about that?
Well, I just would like to encourage the group. A couple people have said this already, but I would love, whoever the temporary chair is and whoever sets up the next agenda, I'd love to hear more of Steve's Commissioner Volin's presentation.
In this meeting, you can call me Steve. It's okay. Like we've been calling everybody else by their first name. I appreciate the formality, but right now I'm Steve too. Like as long as we're consistent, okay? I'm not that special.
I'd love to hear more. I think that would help us be efficient and effective in our future meetings. So
happy to.
Angela, do you have a question as well?
Yeah, but it's not on Robert's rules. Sorry.
I'm not disappointed. It's okay.
Okay. Are we always going to meet at this time? Or are we going to try to find earlier times of day?
That is the next agenda item that I was just getting ready to go to, which is to schedule a regular meeting time for the commission. Tonight, if you're ready to, you could pick a monthly date and time for commission meetings. I would recommend having the meetings fall at the same time each month, just so that we can notice them and that there's some regularity. But I also understand that it might be difficult to do that tonight with 3 of the members missing. So at the very least tonight, I think you all should schedule your next meeting so that we know when that is, and that so that we can prepare a notice. But if you're ready to schedule a set time and date, you're able to tonight. Obviously, the other 3 members will be informed if you do that. But at the very least, again, you should schedule your next meeting tonight. And I should also note that the ordinance that created the commission states that you'll meet monthly unless you decide to cancel the meeting. So if there's no business, if you're still performing research, you don't have to meet each month. You can decide to cancel the meeting. But it does state that you'll meet at least 4 times a year. So that's a requirement. And I see Nicole has her hand raised.
Yeah, so I don't know if I'm going to do this correctly, but I would then like to make a motion that we perhaps, or an idea on the table, I don't know what the difference is at this point, that we consider maybe go ahead and schedule our first work meeting in 2 weeks, and then bringing our next meeting to doodle poll one more time, and if not, diverting back to this time, if that's okay with everyone present, since we weren't able to get a unanimous doodle poll for our time. I mean, I would like to try to get everybody at least on the same page, and as being available. Like, you know what I mean? I don't want to schedule a meeting permanently when we have people who are saying they're not available during that time, who are on our commission. So that's difficult for me. I don't know how to get around that.
Did you have a specific date in mind? You mentioned 2 weeks.
Like 2 weeks. Yeah. I mean, if we can do 2 weeks from tonight, I can do 2 weeks on Tuesday at 7 to 8. I could also do, that can also, somebody can amend that. But my idea is to have a work meeting to maybe perhaps invite Steve back and go over those Robert Rules of Order and kind of like feel a little bit more like we can talk a little bit more, but without staying here until midnight, where we can be more productive at our next meeting and actually like maybe put agenda items for moving forward on it and get through our bylaws. And
Sure. I will note that June 1st, I believe, is the date for the council's budget advance with the mayor. And so I don't think the council members will be available, and this Zoom account may not be available. So we might need to look for, I don't know if June the 3rd, which is the Thursday of that same week, might work.
Okay, that's up to, I'd like to hear what other people have to say, if they even want to do a work meeting or if they just want to schedule out, or like, this is just, I'm only one of 11, so.
Sure. Kamala, sorry, hand raised.
I would like to do a work meeting so that at least Renee and I could compare things that we would like to talk to the police chief about. And we could add like 3 more people so that she and I can write emails to each other. And I'm just kidding. No, so that I would like to have a work meeting though, so that at least we could try and talk about that. So I think that would be a good idea. I would like to make a motion for a vote on whether or not we should have a work meeting before the next meeting of our commission.
There we go.
Since there's no chair, I'll just mention that a motion typically requires a second. So if a member wants to
second
that, and it sounded like the motion was to hold a meeting with a date to be scheduled, but to hold a work session in about 2 weeks from now. And I think that's the motion. So in the absence of any other chair, I will just call on commission members as I see. Are there any questions about that? This wouldn't be to schedule that. We'd still need to pick a date and time. Renee?
Do we have anybody who actually would like to be the temporary chair?
Okay, there's at least 3 motions on the table right now, so you need to.
Well, I know, but then Mr. Lucas, Stephen wouldn't be in the hot seat for that, and we could practice a little, and then we'd know what to talk about in our work session.
Can I ask a question?
Sure, why
Since
not?
I'm not really sure what I'm doing, I would volunteer if you would assist me.
I would love it.
Can we have a co-chair?
Well,
That's a whole other, that's a third.
I think Councilmember Volan's right that we're getting a lot of motions on the table, and this goes back to his one item at a time.
I will volunteer to be the interim chair. If I make the motion, I'll volunteer.
Kamala, I love you, but the motion on the table is whether or not we want to have a
All right, all right, all right, all
I'm
right.
just trying to get it through.
Calm down,
so we can
everybody.
vote
Point of
on whether or
order.
not We can have a
Point
word
of order.
meeting.
Well,
Can-
point of order.
Can I just ask Isabel Piedmont Smith to please resume chairing until they,
Somebody help me
make
out.
decisions?
That's my fault. I'm sorry.
I don't have my Robert's Rules meme up on the background of Zoom, so I'm sorry.
Okay, I would be
can't
happy
help it
to
out.
resume chairing. I thought Stephen was doing fine, but that's fine with me. So we have a motion on the table.
Jump in.
We have a motion on the table to schedule a work session in approximately 2 weeks. So I'm going to call your name as I see you on the screen, and we'll take a vote on that motion. Renee?
Aye.
So that's a yes. Alex?
Yes.
Heather?
Yes.
Arvind?
Yes.
Kamala?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Nicole?
Yes.
And Najla?
Yes.
Okay, so that passes 8-0. So now I think the next challenge is to figure out what day in approximately 2 weeks to have this work session. And then after we've done that, then we can go on to an interim chair discussion. So Thursday, June 3rd was suggested in the evening. I'm going to go around again just to get everybody's input on this. Renee, would that work for you at
I'm
7
sorry.
p.m.?
I'm sorry, what date?
7 p.m. June 3rd.
June 3rd. 1 second. At the Thursday, 7 p.m. I'm okay with that. Yes, that's fine.
Alex?
Yeah.
Heather?
Yeah.
Arvind?
Yes.
Kamala?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Nicole?
Yes.
And Najla?
Yes. And can I add something or no?
So we've decided to have a meeting on June 3rd at 7 p.m. as a work session. Najla, did you have something to add or ask?
Thanks. I was just gonna, I guess, add and ask. I can make it at 7 p.m. on that date. And after that, and I would prefer to meet earlier in the day if possible for my health reasons. Thank you.
Would anybody be opposed to meeting at 6 o'clock that day instead?
Actually, I'll be in the middle of making dinner. I mean, I can do it, but I'm just gonna have more kids. You know what I mean? Like, unless that gets into dinner time for me.
Okay, Renee?
Could we do 6:30 and compromise? Lost you, Nicole.
Sorry, I'm still muted. Yes, that's fine. We can try. I can also do 4. I can do 5. But 6 is 6. I'm usually That's when we sit down. So that's my problem.
So would 6:30 work for everybody? To have it at least a little bit earlier? Okay. Seeing no objections, let's do 6:30 and then
Yeah, that's fine. Can we eventually go back to the doodle poll idea maybe and
Yes.
get more specific and get, I'm just saying, could we possibly add some more options to the mix before
This is just for
deciding
the next
permanently
meeting.
when?
Yeah, this is just for the next meeting, and then I think another doodle poll, including the 3 members who are not here, is in order then to set a regular meeting time.
Thank you. Perfect. Thanks.
All right. So in the agenda for tonight, it's indicated that we recommend the focus of the next meeting would be brainstorming subject matter and assigning specific questions. Now, I did not write this, so Becky, what did you mean about assigning specific questions?
And Becky can certainly speak to this, but it sounded like this work session that the commission wanted to schedule might not be the meeting we were envisioning happening next. So if there's a specific purpose for the work session, I heard, a discussion of Roberts, if Councilmember Volin is able to attend, a possible discussion of your permanent meeting schedule. And I'm not sure if there were other topics, but I think we were envisioning that the second meeting, which would be in a month from now. Becky, I don't know if you could speak to this agenda item.
Well, I was just imagining how to get started, because I know people had questions and there was data that people were requesting. So I thought it might be a good time to just brainstorm and decide, like if somebody was going to pursue a particular question or a particular data point, and then we can come together and discuss it at the next meeting. But I'm not sure that that's how this is. I'm not sure that's the best approach. So.
Kamala?
Well, isn't that kind of what we're going to do at the work meeting?
Yes, it sounds like it.
It certainly can be, and I know we've talked at multiple points tonight about getting together a list of things that you all want to research or
But
document.
we could still, but if the other people aren't going to be there because they can't make it because of the doodle poll and things, we can go into greater detail then, or maybe everybody doesn't have to attend the work meeting. I'm not sure.
Steve?
Yeah, work sessions are not meant to be places where decisions are made. So it's more for like receiving info about stuff that's coming down the pike and
Right.
planning the meeting where you do make decisions. So yeah, you guys are trying to, even as you're trying to figure out how you're going to do business, you're also trying to figure out what topics you're going to focus on first. And you can begin talking about that at a work session, I think.
Yes, I would recommend some brainstorming and then kind of homing in on, 2 or 3 or maybe 4 topics so that you can start focusing your energies. Nicole?
Yeah, that's kind of why, first of all, I had suggested the work meeting simply so that we could understand process more, so that when we do come to our first meeting, we have a work meeting in between, and we use this work meeting to hopefully we set a time. I know we set one, but we didn't even bother to ask Steve if he was available to come and tell us more about his.
I'm available.
thing.
I'm available. Don't worry.
Okay, great. That's wonderful. I'm glad that worked out. But other than that, then at the end, the second half of that meeting, after we get through a Robert's rules, we can our new chair at that point we can talk about our agenda and what we want to tackle for our first meeting, right? Because I think it's already 9 o'clock. We've been in here 2 nights and we don't even have a chair yet. So, and I also think that maybe we need to think about if we have the ability to chair. I know and understand a lot, but I don't want to chair because I can't chair. I'm not a chair. So I'm willing to say that. Like, I can vice chair just fine, but I'm not a chair. I don't like to be chairs. I have too many opinions and my mouth doesn't stay shut. So, I'm not a chair.
Okay, well, seeing as we are approaching 9 o'clock, let's move to the next agenda item, which is election of officers. And I think there seems to be a consensus to just elect some temporary officers to get us to the next regular meeting. So it would be for the work session and then for at least the beginning of the next regular commission meeting. So Kamala has already put her name forward as a temporary chair. Is there anybody else who's interested in doing that?
I would offer to co-chair along with Kamala if she wanted it, just because I've been on other commissions before.
I as well could co-chair. I've been vice president of a board and I'm pretty familiar with Robert's rules.
And I would
All right.
defer to you. I would defer to Renee.
Well, I mean, ideally, we would have 3 temporary officers. We would have a chair, a vice chair, and a secretary, because it would be nice to have somebody taking notes. So I've heard 3 people come forward, not necessarily for those positions. Would one of you be willing to be the interim secretary?
I'm not really good with notes myself. That's where my head is with the notes thing. I mean,
I am also not a good note taker myself. I specifically cannot volunteer for that position.
Okay. Does anybody else want to just be our temporary secretary for the CAPS Commission?
I will.
Oh, thank you very much, Heather.
Thank you, Heather.
All right, so it sounds like we have a slate of temporary officers. Would somebody like to make a motion to approve this slate of temporary officers? Which would be Kamala as chair, Renee as vice chair, and Heather as secretary.
I'll make that motion.
I second.
Okay, great. So I will again call on you as I see you on my screen. Nicole,
Sorry, yes.
Renee,
Yes.
Alex,
Yes.
Arvind,
Yes.
Kamala,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
Heather,
Yes.
and Najla.
Yes.
Okay, very good. Thank you to those 3 volunteers for filling in. John?
Well, I'd like to suggest that as we close in on 9 o'clock that, or maybe I'm just echoing what I think I hear people saying, that we focus the work session on getting some more training on Robert's rules and then beginning the brainstorming process of what kind of data do we want to collect, who do we want to collect it from. That could be really fun. We start with something dry and then shift into something more fun and interesting, and that we hold off then on the bylaws sort of review and the permanent meeting schedule and the permanent officers, those 3 decisions at our next full commission meeting.
Right, until we.
Hopefully with everybody present, right? After we do another doodle poll and
Doodle poll,
get a
yeah.
date.
Yes, and those are more official type actions anyway that should not be done at a work session. Renee?
I like that idea, John. I really do. I would like to say moving forward, when we are thinking about those bylaws, though, there's a great resource. And I think if everybody's amicable, I would just email the resource that people could read for themselves. It's called Aorta. It's an anti-oppressive meeting facilitation way to come up with bylaws.
Yes, please send that. I love that.
All right, Steve?
I just want to say briefly, I'm interested in the process you guys undertake to develop your bylaws, because one thing we've talked about with the administration is it practical to maybe have a standing set of bylaws for all boards and commissions so they don't have to go through as much of a heavy lift when there's a new commission and maybe there's more consistency. So especially one developed under these circumstances would be, I think, better for everyone else in this too. So I'm just watching with interest.
All right. Any final thoughts, Renee?
Yeah, I think that's an interesting idea, but I want to make sure and reiterate that it's anti-oppressive. And that's why I think all of us join this commission.
That's why I said it too. That's all. I'm agreeing with you.
Great, Steve. Thank you.
Nicole?
Yeah, I'd like to. Yeah, I was trying to wait, and I have a problem. I'm on my phone, and in order to get to my hand, I have to get into like 4 screens. So I do apologize. So it stayed up from last time, but I do have something to say, and I just wanted to say thank you to everyone for making this possible from point A, the beginning of it, till tonight. And especially thank you for your continued support. I look forward to working with Becky and, oh my goodness, I'm just blinked your name. I can't see it. All I see is
Stephen.
Stephen. Anyway, I won't do that again, obviously. But yeah, so thank you guys for extending your hand and helping us. Yeah, I think that we have a potentiality to like look at city government through just some new eyes, because that's what's happening, right? Like that's literally what's happening. And so that's going to be interesting. And I hope people watch. Okay.
Thank you. I think that's a great note to end on. And I also appreciate all of you rolling up your sleeves and getting to work on this important issue. And I will not be at the subsequent meetings because I don't want to influence what you all are doing. But I guess Becky will follow up with a link for the June 3rd meeting, and then also reach out to the 3 people who weren't here tonight and make sure that they know about that meeting, and hopefully they can attend, and then also do a doodle poll for the next full commission meeting. So I think that wraps up our business for tonight.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Nice
Thank
to
you.
meet you,
Bye, everybody,
everyone.
and good luck.
Nice to
Bye.
meet you all.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye.